Today, I'm going to be walking you through how to actually get copywriting clients quickly and get clients that are going to retain for the next 6 to 12 months so that you can actually depend and rely on this income and have a consistent standard of living. So let's dive straight into this Miro board and I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do, everything you need to get set up, and the strategy to actually get those clients quickly. Okay, but first of all, who am I and why should you even listen? Well, as you can see, I've been a 10K a month copywriter for quite some time now. There's the Stripe, there's my bank. I've had months much bigger than 10K months. The past 3 months have been 20K months. I've used that to build, quite a big investment portfolio. I live in a beautiful home by the coast. I drive a car that I really like. I've taken my girlfriend all around the world. We're actually days away from having our first child together. And as you can see, I've been the best testimonial for multiple coaches in multiple different masterminds. So safe to say I've done this, I'm still doing this, I'm actively working with clients right now, and I'm actively helping people to get the same results that I'm getting, and you can go check out my other channel if you want to see more of that. Okay, so before we dive straight into this, I want to give you a slight overview, okay, because we've got everything you need to actually get started, everything that you got to get set up. We've got the strategy, we've got the things that make it work, and I have got a shortcut for you at the end. All right, but as you can see here, the things that you need to get started massively outweigh the things in the strategy. And that's because in order for the strategy to work, we have to set things up correctly. You have to have the right stable foundations to scale with. Okay, so we're going to be spending more time on setting the things up, setting yourself up for success, than we are actually covering the strategy, because the strategy is quite simple. It just requires consistency and consistent action, but you can't take consistent action if you don't have all of these things set up and working correctly for you. Okay, so let's dive straight into what you actually need to get started. Now, here's something that most people sleep on, and it's just looking after your own domain. Okay, having a domain warming tool like MailReach just set up and running in the background so your domain looks like a normal person's domain, not some spammy dude sending hundreds of emails, getting no replies, and getting blacklisted by Google. Because if you're, outreaching to be an email marketer and you're landing in their promo box, it's not the best look, is it? All right. So the first thing is just a healthy domain. So set up Google Postmaster tools, set up a mail warming tool so that you can actually have visibility on your domain health and know where your emails are landing. The next thing, you need a way to be able to book calls. So for me, Calendly works great, but obviously you want to be able to minimize as much friction in the outreach process as possible. So being able to just be like, look, does tomorrow at 2 p.m. work? And then booking them in via your own scheduling tool, whether that's Zoom, whether that's, Calendly, whatever that is, we need a way to make this as frictionless as possible. So have all this set up before someone wants to jump on a call. The next is having your CV, right? Having experience. And within your CV, you should have your portfolio. So if you're a brand new copywriter and you're saying, oh, but I don't have testimonials, I don't have results, I don't have a portfolio, I don't have a CV, well, go make one with spec work. Okay, if you want to write ads, go write ads for your dream clients and put them in your portfolio. Break them down in a CV, show the experience you have, because you don't need client experience to have a CV. You don't need, client experience to make a portfolio. Go make one now. Okay, now if you were trying to break into any other industry, there would be some upfront work, there would be some free work, there would be some struggle for you to break into that industry. It's no different with copywriting. Okay, so go get those things built out right now. Have your CV, show your experience, show who you've worked with, show what clients you're working with, show what you do, how you do it, all of that stuff. Because taking, like, what you got to remember is that these clients are taking a risk on you, and the more we can reverse that risk, the easier of a sell it is, and the more likely you are to land more clients and land them quickly. Okay, so make sure you've got a CV, you've got your portfolio set up. The next is very similar to the domains. You should have multiple inboxes, because certain Outlook clients, certain clients that are using Outlook, Office 365, they don't accept emails from Gmail or from random domains or from this. So you need to make sure you've got a Gmail account, you've got an Outlook account. And look, to be nice and professional, you should just have a normal domain, like your own domain that you own. For me, it's Beyond Touch. And you should have those hooked up to an Outlook inbox and to a Gmail inbox. So it's your own personal domain, so it looks nice and professional, but you're, increasing your chances of being able to land in every single inbox, no matter what a client's using. Okay, now another thing that you need to invest in and just have before you need it is just obviously a Zoom account so that you can have an hour-long call with someone without getting cut off at 45 minutes. Super unprofessional. And a Loom account, because in order to send the best emails and the best outreach, we want to be coming with upfront value, and Loom audits are probably the best way to do that, especially in 2025. Okay, so just spend the $15 or whatever it is to have an actual Loom account so that you can send multiple Looms and not get capped at 25. Because remember, this system will be the thing that pays you for years to come. So spending 15, $20 on something to get more money in, that's just business. And if you're uncomfortable doing that right now, then the outreach system is the last thing you need. You need to work on your mindset, because if, spending $15 on Loom is making you feel all scarce, then you need to flip over to abundance, because everything you want is on the other side of that abundant thinking. And, having your guard up and back against the wall and not spending $15 on Loom is probably the reason why you're struggling to progress right now. Okay, so the other things you need is an ICP, an ideal customer profile. Who are you actually reaching out to? What's their business? What do they look like? What's their goals? What's their dream state? What's their problem? Like, how do you actually help them? We want all of this listed out. Russell Brunson, he has an ICP doc for every single decision at ClickFunnels. They run every single internal company decision via their ICP doc to see if it makes sense for their customer, because everything you do should be focused on the customer, focused on the person you're helping, and focused on actually delivering value. The second you flip to value first is the second that outreach starts to work super simply. All right, so get clear on that ICP. Now, the other things that are related to the ICP is your skills and your offer. So you need good skills before you can land clients. Otherwise, you are a scammer. Okay, so if you're watching this video hoping that I'm going to give you some secret tricks that you can go mug people out of money, that ain't the case. You need skills. You need to be an actual copywriter. So read, model copy, practice copy. Like, you need to be doing those reps. You can't just expect to go from earning £6 an hour at Tesco to earning 10k a month as a copywriter without putting in any reps. Otherwise everyone would do it. So you need skills, and your skills need to be in a real offer. So I help copywriters escape the feast and famine cycle in 90 days or less by leveraging the magnetic client method. That is my offer. Okay, but my offer for businesses, my B2B offer, my copywriting offer, I've got ones in social media, I've got ones for email list management, I've got just full-on marketing partner offers. But without a concrete offer, you're going to struggle turning up in someone's inbox, because you won't be able to highlight a solvable opportunity, and you won't be able to come with an offer that actually solves that opportunity. So even if you do get their attention, even if they do watch your Loom, it's all wasted. It's all for nothing. So build these fundamentals, build these foundations first. You need to work on your skills. You need an offer. Now, let's run with that as well, because if someone does watch your email, or does open your email, does watch your Loom, the next obvious step for them is to do their due diligence, to see if you're actually walking the walk and not just talking the talk, to see if you're actually practicing what you preach. And so your digital presence needs to be, super easy to find, and it needs to back up everything you're saying. So for me, I have LinkedIn, I have Instagram, I have Facebook, and on every single profile, I'm just building on those know, like, and trust factors. Okay, so you need to be doing that as well. You need to make sure that you are in as many places as possible, and that you are proving that you are an actual copywriter, that you're active in the industry, that you've got proof, that you've got social credit, that you've got skills. All of those things are a complete necessity in 2025. And if you're trying to do outreach as an anonymous ghost, this is probably one of the reasons why you're struggling. Okay, now there's only two more things on this thing that you need to get built, and one is a dashboard, right? I want to see how many gigs you're applying to, how many emails you've sent, how many prospects you've collected, how many of those emails turned into opens, how many of those opens turned into viewed Looms, how many viewed Looms turned into calls, how many calls you took versus how many you closed. Like, you need to get as close to the data as possible so that we can identify bottlenecks and then fix bottlenecks. Without this, you're just randomly sending emails and hoping that one day you're going to land a client. All of my 8-figure clients, they have growth master sheets that track every single metric within the business. And that is how we make our decisions. So, don't feel just because you're a smaller business that you don't need this. You need this more than these other bigger businesses do, because you're trying to get started. And without visibility on the data that's holding you back, you're constantly going to be in this cycle of what's working, do I test this? You're not going to know when to pivot, and you're just going off guesswork rather than data-driven decisions. Okay. Now, the final thing, and obviously one of the most important things, is your outreach email. Is it personalized? Is it highlighting a solvable opportunity? Is it actually giving a clear offer? Is it coming with value and adopting a partner frame? These are just a slight overview. And in fact, I've got another video that I'll be recording today covering, I think it's the 6 main rules of outreach and how to write a good outreach message. But, that's a separate video. That's a whole video in itself. You need a good outreach email that catches attention, that's personalized, and does all of those things that I just mentioned. All right. So that's all the things you need. They're the foundations. Okay. These are the glue. These are the backbone of your business that you need in place before you can really scale an outreach system. Okay. So, if you want these results, if you want proper, consistent, reliable, and predictable income, you need those things in place, and there's no shortcut in that. Okay, now the strategy is very simple. We're going to be sending cold outbound every single day. All right, the cold outbound is your Instagram DMs, your Facebook DMs, your LinkedIn DMs, your X DMs, wherever you want to send DMs. It's your cold emails. Okay, and cold outbound is brilliant. You get to control how much you send, you get to control who you send it to, you get to control how you turn up and what framing it is. The problem is there's a lot of like external variables outside of your control that might put someone out of the buying window. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe they don't have the right budget. Maybe it's not the right offer for what they're looking for right now. All of those things you can't control. Okay, we can control the volume, but we can't control whether they're in the buy-in window. However, with applications, you very much can control if they're in the buying window. They're telling you they're in the buying window. They're telling you who they want, why they want them, what outcome they want to hit, what problem that they're trying to solve. And so your cold outbound needs to be coupled with like warm gig applications so that your pipeline is constantly, moving towards a conversion event like a call. So outbound daily. Yes, we can control volume, but we can't control if they're in the buying window. So send gig applications, apply to people that are in the buying window and telling you they're in the buying window. Okay, now that should be a daily thing. I do that every single day, apply to gigs, and do my cold outbound. Now, once you do these other things correctly, though, and you've got Facebook, you've got LinkedIn, you've got like Instagram, and you're putting out content that's suited to your ICP, you're showing that you walk the walk and you don't just talk the talk. You're adding value. You're talking about results from clients. Then you're going to start getting inbound DMs as well, inbound leads. So I've made more money this year than I have in any other year in my copywriting career, and I've sent no outreach. Okay, now that's a mix of referrals, inbound, gig applications, sure, but I don't need cold outbound anymore because inbound takes over. All right, so be doing some CTA posts throughout the week. If you want to solve this problem, just shoot me a DM. If you want this outcome that I got from my other client, just shoot me a DM. If big businesses are doing organic traffic, why aren't you? Okay, so all of this comes back to the fact that you just need to treat yourself like a serious business. This is our acquisition channel. We want to track it all in our dashboard, all of that good stuff, but we want to be using, our copywriting abilities to generate inbound leads. And I'll tell you, like closing an inbound lead is so much easier than closing a cold call. It's so much easier. That trust is already built in. All right. So you need to be focusing on generating inbound leads for yourself as well. And again, this, you can't control how often that happens, but you can control how many posts you're doing in a week, how many posts you're doing with a clear offer, how many posts you're doing to get in front of the right people. So they're the things you can control. The last thing, again, comes back to the dashboard, is that we need bottleneck thinking and data-driven decisions. So if you can see that you've sent 100 emails and only 10 got opened, 10% open rate, well, we need to change that subject line. If you can see that, of your, like, let's say 50 people opened, but no people clicked the link to watch the loom, then we need to increase the buy-in and frame the loom as something more valuable and make them actually click that loom. If people are watching the loom, but no one's booking calls, then we need to fix the loom. You see how really like getting close to the data allows you to make data-driven decisions that get you, that solve your bottlenecks and get you closer to booking calls and closing clients. Okay, so again, you see how the strategy is quite simple. It's the boring stuff. It's the boring stuff that no one can do. All right, because no one does the, the building the foundations first to put them in a position to really be able to scale this properly. Okay, now the key is tracking this, is having consistency, is having a central point to know whether you're hitting your KPIs, where you're slacking, where you're going wrong. I build a tracker so that every single client I work with has success within 90 days. And that's why I said, I help copywriters escape the feast and famine cycle in 90 days or less by leveraging the magnetic client method. I build all of this stuff with them, and then I keep them accountable using a tracker so that across 90 days, we can guarantee that you are going to see progress, right? Now, the shortcut here, obviously, is doing what all of those dudes inside the magnetic client method have done. That's why we've managed to have, 7 out of 9 make their money back within the first month. That's why we've managed to get, there will be 10 incredible testimonials on this channel. 10, I know there's only 9 people in the offer, but Carol has had incredible results and he's had 2 interviews. So there will be 10 as of, probably when this video is posted, that people just absolutely smashing it. Now, if you want that same shortcut, you want me to hold your hand through this entire process, you want me to build those foundations with you, then check out the link in the description. Feel free to book in a quick call. We can go over your outreach, we can go over your prospecting, we can go over your CV, whatever it is, whatever bottleneck you need fixing, we can fix on a quick 15-minute, no pressure chat. If you want to talk further after that to see about working together in the magnetic client method, we can have a separate conversation for that. But this is not a sales call, no pressure, leave your card at home. This is purely to fix the bottleneck that is holding you back. And if that sounds appealing to you, just click the link in the description. We can book that in and we can have a conversation. But like I said, I'm working on a bunch more videos, outreach systems, how to write outreach. So make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications because you won't want to miss these videos. Now take care and I'll catch you in the next one.